Good morning. Good morning and welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming to this working breakfast called Make in India, where we'll count with the presence of the Ambassador of India to Spain, Mr. Vikram Misri. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for coming and joining us this morning. It's a pleasure. We are ready to listen to your presentation about the Make in India program and the Make in India week. The big challenge of the Indian government to encourage multinational companies to manufacture their products in India. This initiative, launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2014, should be acknowledged as a vision and a huge goal that will bring nothing but big results and success to the Indian society. Congratulations then to all those who are leading this program, the officials of the Indian government. After Mr. Misri, we'll listen the speeches from the representatives of Manubens Abogados and Talgo, both sponsors of this event. On behalf of Manubens, the speaker is Mandeep Johal, head of India desk. Ms. Johal, thanks for coming. And the final speaker will be the Chief Executive Officer of Talgo, Mr. José María Oriol. Talgo is above all a success story, and we are sure that India will be the next chapter. I also appreciate the presence of Mr. Oriol. It's an honor having you here. So now, let's start with the presentation of the Ambassador Misri. Mr. Vikram Misri, it's your turn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cesar. Good morning. Buenos dias. Thank you for inviting me here once again and for this opportunity to share with you some thoughts on the Make in India program specifically, and also on developments in the Indian economy in general. Before I begin, let me also thank my good friends José María Oriol and Mandeep Johal. Jose, thank you very much for being here this morning. I know you are extremely busy, and I hope about to get busier with your expedition in India, which I'm sure will be a great adventure, and grateful to you for your presence here this morning. And thank you, Mandeep, also for all the support that we received from Manubens in organizing this and other similar events. Before I get on to the Make in India plan specifically and what it means for the government of India, perhaps I should try to put in context what I'm saying here this morning, because all of you who are involved with the world of international economics, business and finance cannot have come into this room without the feeling of what kind of a year 2016 is going to turn out for the global economy. I was reading somewhere that since records started being kept, the world economy has had the worst start in 2016 of any year that people can remember. So the global economy is admittedly in a tough spot. Stock markets are falling everywhere. Currencies are weakening. Europe, we know, is in a difficult spot. Everybody has seen in the last few weeks and months the difficulties that the Chinese economy has been having. The United States, which represented a bright spot in terms of its recovery, is also beginning to feel the after effects of its own policies, and suddenly the move by the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates a few weeks back does not seem like such a smart move if the reaction in the rest of the world and what the rest of the world economy is going through is any indicator. Now, it's not as if India is completely untouched by all of this. We are a part of the global economy, and the Indian stock markets, the Indian currency, have also reacted to what is going on. But, and here is the key point that I wanted to make as I try to put in context what we are doing here this morning. If you look around the world, India is practically the only place in terms of large economies and growing economies that you can name as a big source of demand in the near future. And that, I would submit to you, is the single most important attraction of the Indian economy today. In the next 5 to 10 years, this is the economy to be involved with. And I think those who would get in early into this economy, even in the difficult times that the global economy is seeing today, would stand to benefit enormously. I should perhaps also say a few words about why the Indian economy is proving to be more resilient than some of the other economies in a similar situation. You would have seen remarks by people from the World Bank, the IMF managing director some years ago, amounting to the conclusion that amongst the so-called BRICS countries, India is probably the only BRIC left standing at the moment in terms of its economic performance and the unfortunately difficult economic situation that some of our other BRICS partners have experienced in recent times. The first important reason to understand for the resilience of the Indian economy is the fact that it's an economy whose growth model is based on domestic demand rather than exclusively export demand. In this, we are significantly different from even some of our BRICS partners. And the fact that there is a domestic market takes up the slack whenever export demand falters, which is the case right now, where even our exports have fallen. But the fact that there is a large domestic market which is ready to take up the slack has allowed India's growth figures to proceed. And the domestic market therefore creates a cushion at a time of global slumps. It also helps that exports by themselves are not as significant in the Indian GDP as they are for some other countries that were led by export development. The other important reason that I would say for the reason why we are doing relatively better than some other countries is the fact that we are not a commodity exporter. We are in fact a commodity importer. So the fall in global oil prices, global metals prices, fuels and other things is actually a huge bonus for India, because it helps our current account deficit, it helps our budget deficit, it helps bring down inflation in India, and it helps create the room for interest rate reductions and therefore to boost industrial sentiment and the investment sentiment in India. So compared to a lot of other economies, the so-called emerging economies in Latin America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, which pursued or for very good reasons were based very significantly on the model of exporting commodities, our different economic posture and our different structure in terms of being largely a commodity importing country rather than an exporting country has helped us in this time when the commodity supercycle in effect has ended and the collapsing demand in China has created very, very difficult economic situations for many of these countries that were based on exporting commodities. The third reason I would suggest is the fact that, again, India is one of the few countries today where monetary policy is still available as a tool to boost industrial and investment sentiment. You've seen what the situation in the United States is, where the Fed has had to lift rates after being close to zero for nearly a decade. You've seen what the situation in the European Union is, where the European Central Bank is cutting rates even further. We are now into negative rate territory with regard to some rates. And obviously, in these kinds of times, when a downturn hits or a recession approaches, monetary policy is not available as a tool to policymakers because interest rates are already so low. In the Indian case, however, for good or bad reasons, interest rates are still in middling territory. The prime intervention rate of the Indian Central Bank is still around 6.5–7%. And that creates the room for the Indian Central Bank to use monetary policy to boost industrial and investment sentiment in India. And as a matter of fact, as our fiscal deficit position improves, as our current account deficit position improves, as inflation comes down in India, it creates the headroom to use monetary policy and use interest rate cuts to boost investment further, and that is being reflected in the economic growth figures in India. And finally, I would say that India's strong demographics and the reform-minded direction that the government has shown are a big factor in why we are doing better at the moment than some other countries. India is today the youngest country in the world. Almost 50% of our population is under the age of 25. That's nearly 600 million people aged below 25. That has clear implications for the working age, the size of the working age population of India, and indeed the size of the working age population available to the world at large. Because the way demographic trends are going at the moment, in the next 35 years, India will have the largest population in the world in the working age population between 17 to 55, 60, whereas the composition of the population in the rest of the world will only grow older. And therefore, there's going to be a clear demand-supply imbalance insofar as human resources are concerned. And I think India stands well placed to provide the human resources including in many skilled areas. And the other one, as I said, is the reform-minded program that this government, the government that has taken office about a year and a half ago, has embarked on, of which Make in India is one sterling example. So, all of these developments have amounted to the fact that our economy today is doing much better compared to even a year and a half ago. A lot of the indicators have improved, and a lot of the impetus to the economy is being provided by government spending on infrastructure. So it's not just the private sector that is being asked to spend on infrastructure, but the government is leading huge programs on infrastructure spending in roads, in railways, in industrial corridors, in smart cities, and trying to do all this in an environment where it is also focusing on improving the ease of doing business in India, because the government recognizes that in order to attract not just foreign investment, but to make it easier even for domestic investment to expand, they need to make doing business in India a much easier prospect. That has been the case in the past. So, these are just a few numbers. Where do we stand by numbers? We are in absolute terms the seventh largest economy in the world today, with a GDP at current prices of $2.18 trillion. If you look at the next four economies above us, you can see how little the gap is, and how by growing at our current rates of growth, which you will see in the portion on the right at 7.4% for 2014-15, which makes us the fastest growing major economy in the world. If we can maintain that rate, and there's no reason why, barring a serious downturn in the international economy, why we should not be able to do that we will very quickly overtake at least the next four countries that are to the left of us in that table. In any case, even right now, by purchasing power parity valuation, India is the third largest economy in the world behind China and the United States. And this gives you a sense of the direction in which we are headed and the potential that the Indian economy holds. I don't know if you can read this very well, but it's the big numbers that are important. And for those of you who are interested, you can approach the screen closer to reassure yourselves that it is not I who is saying this, but there is a source at the bottom of each one of those numbers. From what I can make out, India is the first amongst the world's fastest growing countries and economies, and that is from the International Monetary Fund. We are the first amongst the world's topmost greenfield FDI destination between January and June 2015. This was from a study that was commissioned by the Financial Times markets. We are the first among 100 countries that were rated on a growth, innovation and leadership index. This was a study done by Frost and Sullivan. We are the first amongst the world's fastest growing economies for 2016 and 17 in terms of a projection, and this came from the United Nations 2016 study, which was released just a few days ago on the world economic situation and prospects, the WESP study that the UN releases every year. India is the first choice for tech MNCs, multinational corporations, to set up R&D centers outside of their home countries. And this is also testified to by the fact that increasingly there are hardly any major Fortune 500 companies that are now not only manufacturing in India but also designing in India and having research and development centers set up in India, and so on and so forth. I think there are a large number of statistics there that go to demonstrate the direction in which the economy is going, and many of these statistics, as you can see, are very recent. So we are not sitting on past laurels. These are developments that have taken place in just the last couple of years. For example, if you see the last two figures on the right-hand side, the emphasis that the government has laid on improving the ease of doing business in India, on reforming the investment climate in India, and on improving competitiveness is reflected in the figures of the World Bank, where we jumped 12 places on the ease of doing business index in India. Of course, we have a long way to go, and the government is intent on that, but the direction is clear in the sense that we've risen 12 places in that index, and we've risen 16 places in the global competitiveness index. In the last year, in 2015, as a vote of confidence in the Indian economy, the FDI equity inflows in India increased by 35%. So this is to put in context the program of that the government calls Make in India. Essentially, this was launched in September 2014, so it's about a year and a half old. It's a national and international initiative designed to facilitate investment, foster innovation, and enhance skill development. It includes protection of intellectual property and to build best-in-class manufacturing infrastructure in India. And as the slogan of this campaign says, there has never been a better time to make in India. Now, what is this based on? The Make in India program is based on, I would say, four major pillars: new processes, new infrastructure, new sectors, and a new mindset. When I talk about new processes, to just give you a very small example, because if I were to detail all the measures, it would take us the better part of the day. The new processes are evident in the reforms that have been introduced in the processes of doing business in India. So how do you apply to set up a company in India? How much time does it take you to open an office in India? How much time does it take you to get yourself registered with the tax authorities in India? In how much time can you get the permissions to access local municipal services in India? All of this is being digitized, is being rationalized, and the impact of all of this has been to improve the position of India on the index of ease of doing business. A lot of this has been accompanied by delicensing and deregulation. So a lot of permissions that were mandatory earlier have been removed from the mandatory list. There were a lot of certifications that were needed. Businesses needed to go to a public notary and certify the fact that they were doing X, Y, or Z. The government has removed that and has introduced self-certification as a huge reform. It's one of the biggest reforms in India, where the company that now wants to declare something actually certifies it itself, and the government is ready to trust the company and act on its word. In any case, there are provisions in India where if you knowingly make false statements to a public official, then that is counted as an offense. So the government has said, okay, you don't need to go to a lawyer, you don't need to go to a public notary, we won't ask you to go to a court and get something stamped. We will trust you to make a declaration under your own signature that what you're saying is true. It's a huge reform that has taken place in India, and if you were aware of the number of certifications that were required from various levels of public officials in the past, this is a huge reform that has taken place in India. New infrastructure, and this is what a lot of Make in India is based around. Industrial corridors, industrial clusters, smart cities, these are actually the areas in which government is spending a lot of money, putting in a lot of seed capital and asking private investors to come and join in, either as independent partners on their own or in a public-private partnership mode. New sectors, this is an area where reform has been focused. So you now have sectors that were previously closed for foreign investment, or where foreign investment was limited quite significantly. And in many cases what has happened is that either the limits have been raised, so where 26% in a sector was the limit earlier, today in many cases the limit has been raised to 100% or 76%, which enables the foreign company to have management control on the board of the company. And in many cases where foreign investment was not allowed at all, or majority control was not allowed at all, the limits have either been raised or majority control has been introduced. Most important amongst these are areas like railways, insurance, defense, and a number of other ones, all extremely important and very, very large sectors in India. And finally, a new mindset, because we all realize that we can put in place a number of rules, regulations, procedures, but unless the mindset changes, things can become difficult. And the government is trying to introduce a new mindset by putting in place measures as well as processes that demonstrate that the government is there to help. So, for example, there's now dedicated hand-holding mechanisms that have been introduced. The government department, for example, concerned with the promotion of industry, has a portal where a prospective investor can get answers to all questions. And there is someone at the other end of that portal to whom queries can be addressed and who can answer those queries. So this is a sea change from the past, where an investor had to probably go to 35 different government departments searching for an answer, whereas now all the queries and all the clearances and all the permissions can be addressed digitally through digital platforms at one place, and the answers received to those questions in the same place. So I've spoken about these on how you can apply for licenses through a 24/7 electronic portal. The validity of the licenses has been extended. Self-certification has been introduced. A number of lists have now been removed from industrial licensing. So where you required a license from the government in the past to manufacture certain products, those lists have been pruned. Those lists have been rationalized. In many areas you don't now require licenses. Manufacturing, a big push in manufacturing, government spending going into manufacturing of smart cities, designing and building smart cities, industrial corridors, industrial clusters. Liberalization of foreign direct investment in key sectors. As I said, 100% FDI is now permitted through the automatic route in construction, in railways operations, in townships, telecom, medical devices, single brand, retail, defense and insurance. As I said, two very large sectors for business in India are amongst the most open sectors today, and a new mindset through sectoral policy reforms, facilitation of investors, and the active involvement of states and urban local bodies. I was telling people earlier that investors and prospective investors sometimes look at India and wonder, how are they going to do business with this country of 1.2 billion people? Where do they start? And my answer to businessmen has often been that you don't do business with India, you do business with a state in India. And there is now a ranking of states produced by the World Bank that is available that lists Indian states in the order of their attractiveness insofar as business and investment is concerned. And you can look at that list, choose the top 5 states, and go and look and explore for yourselves which one you think is going to be the best place for you to set up a business. And that is again another one of the results of the Make in India initiative. Now, we are already beginning to see a lot of impact on the ground of the Make in India initiative in terms of commitments as well as announcements that have been made by various people, various international companies to set up operations in India or expand existing operations in India across a number of sectors. Electronics is a very, very large sector. We currently import nearly $300 billion worth of electronics products. That is more than our oil import bill. And there is an understanding in government that being the strategic sector that electronics is, this is an industry that has to be localized in India, and we need to grow electronics locally in India. And you see leading electronics companies like Foxconn, Asus, Ficom, OnePlus have all announced their intention to set up manufacturing facilities in India. Automobiles, again, India has been one of the largest and most attractive places to set up automobile and automobile components businesses, and the leading names in the world, Mercedes, BMW, Volvo, Ford, are all either manufacturing in India or are now designing in India. In fact, Ford and Nissan and Hyundai have decided that India will be their global center for small car development. So small cars of a certain size exported to the rest of the world will be either designed or made in India. Defense is a huge area for investment. In this, the government has recently raised investment limits, and depending on the kind of technology that is on offer, if, for example, state-of-the-art technology is on offer, then even up to 100% foreign direct investment is available in as strategic and as sensitive a sector as defense as well. And we've had announcements from a number of international groups to set up and manufacture defense products in India. And similarly, in the aviation sector, India is probably the world's fastest growing aviation market. And passenger air travel in India, I think, grew the fastest in any aviation market in the world last year. So there's no wonder that aviation companies are setting up operations in India. You can see how the situation has moved even between 2014 and 2015 in terms of the net stock of FDI destinations. We've moved from 15th position to 9th position amongst host economies for multinational enterprises through a World Investment Report done last year by UNCTAD. We moved from the 4th to the 3rd position. I've mentioned to you the GDP growth rates already, and now also improved manufacturing growth rates in India. These are some of the main announcements that have been made. Foxconn with $5 billion, POSCO with $3 billion, Uber with $1 billion. The CEO of Uber, Mr. Travis Kalanick, was in India 3 days ago at the launch of Startup India, which is another very exciting initiative taken by the government. GSK, General Motors, Philips, Lava, Linde, they've all, it's just an illustrative list of the kind of announcements that have been made for investment in India. In terms of sectors, and this should perhaps interest people in this room, of which are the sectors that are inviting the most amount of foreign direct investment, obviously led by the services sector. And while I'm sure all of those who are present in India have received this information, but through Cesar we'll send you the information once again. The global summit on services is is taking place in India in the month of April. And all those involved in the services sector, I would urge you to be a part of that. Telecommunications, trading, the automobile industry, computer hardware and software, drugs and pharmaceuticals. These are the leading sectors that are inviting a great deal of interest from foreign investors in India. And you can see the change over 2014 and 2015. There's been nearly a 48% increase in FDI equity flow in India. And this is reacting to the policy measures that the new government has put in place since it came into office in May 2014. I just want to speak very briefly about 2 or 3 specific initiatives in certain specific areas. The government's smart city mission to enable sustainable urbanization in India. As I told you earlier about the populations that we are dealing with. In India, over the next 35 years, nearly 400 million people will move from rural settings to urban settings in India. This means that we have to build greenfield new cities and reform existing cities if we are to provide these people with sustainable living conditions. Now, to create urban infrastructure for 400 million people in the next 35 years means like it's the equivalent of building every city in the United States over the next 35 years. That is the scale of the challenge that faces us. But the government has an initiative in place to build 100 new smart cities and to regenerate 500 existing cities, regenerate spaces and areas in 500 existing cities. And this therefore means enormous number of projects in setting up roads, in setting up transport facilities, water treatment, sewage management, urban mobility solutions. And these are all going to be done through special purpose vehicles. Now, in order not to make a foreign investor deal with a multiplicity of government authorities, all of the government's functions and competences will be transferred to a special purpose vehicle, and it is the special purpose vehicle that will float the tenders and the international competitive bidding procedures that are required for implementing this project. So a foreign investor typically has to deal with just one entity on the other side. These are a very, very large number of public bidding contracts that will open up in India starting this month, as the first batch of 20 of these 100 cities get selected by the government for implementation. Industrial corridors. I spoke earlier of the need for industrialization in India. There are 5 major corridors that are planned, and work is already underway in terms of the first packages in the largest of these corridors, which is the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. This is probably the world's largest infrastructure project of its kind. Its basic cost is $90 billion. It has equity participation of 26% by the Japan Industrial Investment Corporation agency in it, and it is open for investment by foreign partners. This entails the development of 24 greenfield cities along the corridor, a 1,400-kilometer long corridor from Delhi to Mumbai, and the development of industrial infrastructure along that corridor. And there are, as you can see, corridors from Amritsar to Calcutta, Calcutta to Chennai, Chennai to Bangalore, in which again Japan is involved in a big way, and Bangalore to Mumbai, in which the UK is a premier partner. And this is Startup India, which was launched just 3 weeks ago. India is today one of the most exciting ecosystems in the world for startups. In 2015, I think we had the 3rd largest number of startups anywhere in the world in India. We had more than 3,000 startups in India. And again, this is combined a lot of government initiatives in getting small businesses to start with an idea, with the government doing a lot of hand-holding. And this is open to foreign investors as well if they want to come to India and take advantage of the ecosystem in India for startups. The government has started with a funding through a corpus fund that will be available through tax exemptions. There is a tax holiday of 3 years that has been announced for startups in India, and linking it to innovation processes with universities and other technical institutions. Now, I thought I would mention 5 areas that could be of particular interest to Spanish businesses in this environment. The first is renewable energy. Obviously, India's energy needs are great, and obviously we would not want to pursue a carbon-intensive path to growth. But the fact is that growth is an imperative in India, and for that energy is required. Our target, the government's target, is to add 175 gigawatts of renewable energy in the next 7 years, up to 2022. 100 of these 100 gigawatt will be solar energy, and the remaining 75 will be distributed between wind, biomass, and hydro. And I think if you can have an idea of the amount of potential in this area, given the fact that we are still our base is very, very low, and the encouragement that the government provides to investors in this area, this is a very, very interesting area for Spanish businesses, and some Spanish businesses have actually already made a mark for themselves in this area. Gamesa, for example, is the market leader in the wind energy sector in India. It controls nearly 37% of the wind turbine market in India. But there is a lot of scope in this area, and I know that Spanish companies are amongst the world leaders in this area. This is a very important area for them. Railways, we have an example present right here. Again, the Indian Railways is the world's largest passenger carrier. Every year we carry more than the population of the world. Nearly 8.3 billion passengers travel on the Indian Railways network every year. We are the world's fourth largest freight carrier. But there is an enormous amount of scope in investment in railway infrastructure, in track improvement, and in rolling stock improvement. And again, I know that Spanish companies like Talgo have an enormous amount of expertise and experience in this sector. Again, a very, very important sector, which also happens to be a sector where operations have been liberalized considerably, with foreign direct investment being made very, very easy in this sector now. Smart cities, I've already spoken, and Spain is probably the capital of the world insofar as smart cities are concerned, given the numbers and the quality of the cities in this country. I've spoken already about the size of the market and the opportunities that are there, and I think Spain and Spanish companies involved in smart city technologies would do very well to grab the opportunities that are available now. Construction, again, Spanish engineering companies and infrastructure management companies are amongst the world's top 10 leading companies in this sector. Again, it's an area where Spanish companies are present to a certain extent in India. Companies like Isolux Corsan, Grupo San Jose, Abengoa, and other such companies are already present and operating and doing very well in India, but there's scope for a lot more in this area. And food processing, again, a sector that is very often not at the top of the list, but is a very important sector, particularly because of Spain's capacities in this area and the fact that there is a lot of potential in India. We are the world's second largest producer of fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, in India, nearly 30 to 40% of this production is wasted and lost before it ever gets to the market, because we don't have the infrastructure necessary to process this and to carry it from the farm to the table. And I think this is an area where there is, again, a lot of scope for Spanish businesses to make a mark. What is happening in India between the 13th and 18th of February in Mumbai? This is Make in India Week, where the attempt is to bring together businesses, governments, technologists, engineers, financiers from around the world to talk about the next steps, to take stock of what has happened in over a year and a half, and for the government to get feedback from industry and to get directions in terms of next steps. It's a huge networking opportunity for businesses to connect with partner businesses, for businesses to connect with governments, for governments to connect with governments on the other side, in order to evolve or remove obstacles that might otherwise be there for businesses to do work together, and for businesses to meet with not only central government authorities but state government authorities in one place. These are some of the key focus sectors that the week will focus on, because there's a very large number of sectors, but defense, automobiles and auto components, chemicals, petrochemicals, construction, food processing, infrastructure, these are amongst the sectors that the week will focus particularly on. You have some information available on what the program is. This will be inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India. It will be the single most significant business event in India this year in 2016. At least 4 states will be making statewide presentations. So what I was saying earlier about getting to know a state, this is the perfect opportunity to get to know 3 or 4 of the leading states in India insofar as investment potential is concerned. Maharashtra, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh and Jharkhand will be presenting themselves in state pavilions, and a number of other events will take place throughout the week. You have a lot of information available in the brochures that are there. For any further information that you need, makeinindia.com/Mumbai Week is the place to go to. The embassy is there in Madrid to help you with any queries that you might have, any facilitation that you might have, or any meetings that you might want to be set up with particular or potential collaborators on the other hand. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. As the turn of Ms. Mandit Johal, she is the head of Manubens India desk. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you to the Honourable Ambassador, Mr. Mistry, for that very informative presentation. Okay, so we've heard a lot of positive talk about India, and as the Madrid representatives for the Europe-India Chamber of Commerce and a legal law firm, we've actively acted for many Spanish companies entering into the Indian market, and we've seen an immense drive from Spanish companies wanting to expand into India, which has been a change over the years. This is changing ideology because Spanish companies knowing the new markets they need to expand into, and also because of the ease that India is trying to make for companies entering India. A little bit of background about Manubens. We are a law firm which was founded in 1987, and we have offices here in Madrid, Barcelona, Andorra, and an India desk. And we're able to provide legal and business services throughout Spain and India. We're a firm of 60 lawyers with 9 partners, and we have full legal services for all businesses. We're also members of an international network of lawyers called Pragma. And these are specialist consultants offering advice to individuals and companies, and the network is made up of 53 firms across 23 countries. So we're able to serve our clients in North America, South America, Europe, and obviously Asia as well. So we're all here to talk about India and investing in India. Well, once you know that you want to travel to India for your businesses to expand, we need to check whether it is permitted for you to do so in your chosen sector. Some sectors are prohibited, and we'll discuss those shortly, but most sectors either require governmental approval or there's an automatic approval, which means that no prior approval is required. If your sector requires prior government approval, then the approval of the Foreign Investments Promotion Board is needed, and this can take between 3 to 6 months. However, the automatic route is a lot faster, and no prior approval is needed of the government or the Reserve Bank of India. There are 3 categories under which investment can fall. You have the prohibited sectors, and this means that foreign companies are unable to invest in these areas, and they include those such as lottery business, gambling and betting, manufacturing of cigars and tobacco, and trading and transferable development rights. Then you've got the sectors where government approval is needed, and foreign shareholding is required. Where the foreign shareholding is more than a permissible sector limits, then you will require the prior government's approval. For example, in the defence production, if you're looking to invest more than 26%, then the prior approval will be required. And then you've got the automatic route, and this means no prior approval is needed. for investment in any of these sectors. However, there can be sectoral limitations for each of the sectors, and we can discuss those on one-to-one single basis. Once you've selected the sector you want to invest in, then you need to consider how you anticipate doing this. There are many different business forms for you to consider, and you need to consider the one that's most suitable for you. A foreign company can set up business in India in a number of different ways, and each business form has its different liabilities and tax obligations. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm just going to give a basic overview, and again, if you wish to discuss this on a one-to-one basis, we can do this separately. If you're looking to open a sole proprietorship, no legal registration is required with government bodies. Simply a business license will be needed, and this is 100% self-funded, so it's unlikely you'll receive any kind of funding. If you anticipate setting up a partnership, this is permitted for selected sectors which are open for foreign direct investments without any conditions, and you're able to do all commercial business activities. However, prior governmental approval is required for setting up a partnership, but this is suitable formation for long-term investment in India. If you set up a branch office, this can be formed by companies engaged in manufacturing and trading activities, and a prior Reserve Bank of India's approval is required. And a branch office is only permitted to do activities such as trading, consulting, and sales agents. You can set up a liaison office. However, this is merely a representative office. It's not allowed to carry out any business activities. You're not able to earn any income from your activities, and the prior Reserve Bank of India approval is needed. If you set up a project office, this is for a specific project awarded by Indian companies. So no prior Reserve Bank of India approval is needed, but a separate project office bank account is required to be maintained for each project. And if you set up a company, well, you can do all commercial business activities, but no prior Reserve Bank of India or government approval is needed. And again, it's a suitable option for if you require a long-term presence in India. A limited liability partnership, this is permitted for selected sectors, i.e. those which are 100% open to foreign direct investment without any conditions. And again, prior government approval is needed. It's a suitable format for a long-term presence in India. Then you've got not-for-profit companies. Now, these are certain companies which are permitted to have a not-for-profit status, and these are Section 25 companies. And they're mainly formed for promoting commerce, art, religion, charity, or any other useful object. And it requires at least 3 individuals to form a Section 25 company, and you're not able to take any dividends from the company, and all money derived from the company has to be injected back into the company. Then you've got compliances and procedures for setting up a company. Now, previously this was quite cumbersome because there was many different authorities you needed to go through to set up a company. However, recently this has become a lot more easier, and it's more able to do it electronically. Now, stage 1 would be you obtaining a director's identification number and a digital signature certificate. Stage 2 includes obtaining the name, checking the name availability with the Register of Companies. Stage 3 is drafting of the Memorandum of Articles and Article Association and having the documents stamped. And Stage 4 is submission of the incorporation documents with the Register of Companies. And Stage 5 is obtaining the Certificate of Incorporation. Now, setting up a company has key statutory compliances after it's incorporated. And these are things that you have to consider, such as convening at least one board of directors meeting every 3 calendar months, and at least 4 of such meetings have to be carried out in 1 year. And the calendar year in India runs from the 1st of April until the 31st of March, which is very different to, obviously, the Spanish accounting year, so this needs to be taken into consideration. And these meetings can also be done via video conferencing. You have to convene an annual general meeting in each calendar year, and the gap between any two successive meetings is not to exceed more than 18 months. The statutory registers to be maintained, i.e. such as the register of members, charges, investments, and directors' shareholding have to all be maintained, and there has to be requisite filing to the Register of Companies for any changes in the nature of the company, i.e. its shareholding, change in the name, or an increase in authorised share capital, or a creation of any charges. So once you've decided business structures and that you need to be sure where you're going to establish your business. Now, things to consider are those such as location aspects. Before finalizing any location for running your business, it's important for you to be clear about the following. Understand the zoning and environmental aspects that apply to the location. Check all property titles and, where possible, buy the land directly from the government. And we were speaking with the ambassador earlier today regarding governments making land available for investments. All property title, you need to ensure it's transferable to the company and it doesn't remain in any private names or under a power of attorney, because this could cause you issues in the future. And you need to understand the tax and other incentives available in your various locations to see which ones apply best to your business. So you need to check the availability of resources, logistics and transportation before finalizing your business and or factory location. Considering management and personnel, once your business location is finalized, you need to ensure you've got good human resources to manage it. So it's important for you to consider posting any expatriates at various levels and understand the local employment terms. Make sure you're aware of the income levels and the social costs before finalizing any human resources policy. And where possible, follow the rules and consider hiring a good liaison agent and outsource all government issues, as it can save you both time and issues and unnecessary problems in the future. Sorry. Now, there are some key tax issues that foreign companies need to consider as well, such as corporate tax. Now, at the present, corporate tax is levied at approximately 33% for Indian companies and 42% approximation for foreign companies. However, there's no further tax in India on repatriation of the profits of a branch of a foreign company. Then you've got personal income tax to consider, wealth tax, sales tax, VAT, and service tax. This is likely to be replaced with the goods and services tax. And then you've got other indirect taxes, withholding tax. And with withholding tax, you've got to consider provisions relating to payment of interest, royalties, technical fees, professional fees, which are paid locally. For non-resident payments, tax needs to be withheld if the non-resident's income is liable for tax in India. Then you've got dividend distribution tax. Now, distribution of dividends by an Indian company is subject to DDT of 16.61%, and the recipient shareholder, whether you're a resident or non-resident, is not taxable on the dividend received from an Indian company. But no dividend withholding tax is levied on the dividends paid by an Indian company to its non-resident shareholders. However, India generally levies capital gains tax on disposition of shares by an Indian company, and the tax rate depends on the capital gain, so whether it's a long-term or short-term capital gain, and whether the shares disposed are listed on a recognised stock exchange. Then you've got the new direct tax code. Now, this is to replace the Income Tax Act of 1961, and it's one of the most significant reforms of tax law in India for many decades, and it's based on strategy to bring structural changes to direct taxation to India, and to minimize tax exemption and to address problems of tax avoidance and tax evasion. So there are challenges that any investor would face towards establishing successfully in India. And given that the regulatory environment is seen as one of the largest barriers to entry, it's critical that the appropriate strategies are envisaged right from the planning stages. Red tape still remains a constant issue, but the difficulties of navigating the bureaucracy has been seen to be outweighed by the eventual benefits of successfully entering the market. So to summarize the India checklist, among other things, it's important for you to consider identifying a suitable local partner. This should be a priority to any successful market entry strategy. Those companies that commit time and effort to find the perfect fit often find that they've saved themselves the task of having to find additional partners later. So we can't stress strongly enough the necessity to ensure that your legal due diligence is carried out from the outset. Know your market. Be clear and thoughtful about identifying your customer segment and reaching them, as India is a very large place. Have a long-term commitment. Partnership with India needs to be seen over the long term. Trust is necessary, and attention should be given to building this in the initial stages of the interaction. Business development techniques. Meeting with potential Indian partners and developing local contacts in India is very important, and this can be done via organisations such as the Embassy, ourselves, the European India Chamber of Commerce, and many other organisations. But it's important for you to ensure that you tap into these resources. And seeking professional advice, we can't stress the importance of doing this, to ensure everything is legally compliant and your company formation and contracts are structured in a manner and a form that you have agreed, and ensuring there are appropriate arbitration conditions and exit clauses which are right for your company. These are all matters which require specific eye to detail, so ensure that you've also got appropriate tax planning from the outset. I'd like to say thank you for listening, and I'd also like to say my colleague Eduardo Zorilli is here, who you can also speak with if necessary. Thank you.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Quiero agradecer a todos los presentes, a Su Excelencia el Embajador, al Fórum Executive España y a todos los que han madrugado para estar presentes aquí con nosotros, a Talgo, que enseguida nos explicará su experiencia en India. Les voy a prometer brevedad y aunque soy abogado, esta vez no voy a mentir demasiado. Simplemente querría subrayar de las palabras de Su Excelencia el Embajador como ahora mismo la presencia en el mercado indio es probablemente imprescindible para las empresas de cierta dimensión y desde luego enormemente útil para empresas que no tienen por qué ser particularmente grandes y pueden acudir a este mercado quizá en compañía de empresas de mayor tamaño de su sector. Y también quiero recalcar la idea que probablemente les haya quedado clara de la intervención de mi compañera, en el sentido de que un abogado es imprescindible en estos casos. Y desde luego un estudio previo de, realmente hablamos de la India como un país, que es lo que es, pero en realidad es un subcontinente, es un mercado de enorme dimensión, de enorme variedad, y a diferencia de lo que en otras épocas determinados players hicieron, que fue aterrizar en la India un poquito porque había que estar allí y sin considerar realmente con el debido interés a qué concreto sector iban y a qué concreta localización y con qué concretos partners. En su caso, esto requiere un estudio profundo, complejo, del lugar más adecuado para realizar la inversión y con qué interlocutores tienen que hablar. Nosotros, modestamente, quisiéramos ayudarles en esta aventura, tanto desde un aspecto, de un punto de vista legal, teniendo en cuenta que el sistema jurídico de la República India es muy distinto al continental que estamos nosotros acostumbrados a manejar, tiene muchas más afinidades con el common law. Y también es importante recalcar que tenemos, convenios con asesores sobre el terreno que se dedican profesionalmente a analizar sectores de mercado y posibles partners desde un punto de vista reputacional y de idoneidad para alcanzar un acuerdo eventual de inversión con ellos. Y tenemos asimismo convenios con despachos de abogados en India que permiten coordinar los aspectos legales de este tipo de inversiones para, en la medida de lo posible, allanar el camino y evitar futuros problemas que siempre son más difíciles de solucionar una vez han surgido. Por lo tanto, muchas gracias a todos por estar aquí y a disposición. Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Zorrilla and Ms. Johal. Now it's the turn of Mr. José María Oriol, CEO of Patentes Talgo. Your turn.
Espera, ¿cómo sí? Esta es la última. Buenos días. Good morning, everybody. First, I would like to thank you, Mr. Misri, the Embassy India, for giving us the opportunity to make our promise a brief presentation today for this exciting future of India. If you don't mind, Mr. Misri, I will do the presentation in Spanish, even though you can follow it in English. First, I would like to state that maybe Talgo is not the best example in terms of experience in India. So today I will basically talk why we selected India and why we believe India is a very attractive market. But again, I'm sure there is other representative of companies here in this room today that have even more experience of penetrating or working in India than Talgo has. Bueno, voy a ir rápido por algunas transparencias. Gracias a la excelente explicación del señor embajador, no creo que vaya a dedicarle ya mucho más tiempo a lo que es hablar de un overview de India. Ya ha dado muchísimos datos. Insisto, sí me quiero centrar, siendo breve, en por qué consideramos y por qué pensamos que India es atractivo, en concreto para nosotros, para este sector del ferrocarril, pero también para otros. Algunos datos sobre Indian Railways que llaman poderosamente la atención. El embajador ha mencionado, yo diría que el dato más importante, que Indian Railways transporta 8.400 viajeros al año. Es decir, es más de una vez la población mundial que viaja en tren durante un año. Las cifras y volúmenes de operaciones diarias con trenes de pasajeros, pues tiene más de 12.000 trenes diarios de pasajeros, más de 7.000 de mercancías. Llama la atención también la velocidad, algo que tienen que mejorar. Velocidad máxima de un corredor es lo que llama el Shatabi, que alcanza los 130 km por hora. Pero la velocidad media de trenes de viajeros en India apenas llega a los 55 km por hora. Ya en cuanto a mercancías se refiere, como veis aquí, pues es de 29. Es decir, hay mucho que hacer en inversión en infraestructura para, entre otras cosas, mejorar la velocidad, ¿no? Importante también hablar del volumen. Es el séptimo mayor empleador del mundo, Indian Railways, con 1.400.000 empleados. Fijaros en la magnitud que supone gestionar semejante compañía y con un volumen de ingresos anuales de 24.000 millones de dólares. En cuanto a parque de material rodante, tiene más de 240.000 vagones de mercancías y 59.000 coches de viajeros. Bueno, con todas estas cifras de Indian Railways es lo que hace atractivo para nosotros y para otras compañías del ferrocarril ir hacia un mercado cuyas cifras de cara al futuro son muy atractivas, cuya necesidad de inversión es enorme, pero las oportunidades también van a ser enormes. Hay un programa que ha establecido Indian Railways que se llama el Indian Railways Vision 2020, donde ellos reconocen y han visto que tienen una serie de carencias que tienen que mejorar para hacer atractivo o más atractivo la inversión extranjera en la India. Yo creo que hay una premisa, sobre todo cuando uno trabaja con compañías estatales en la India, no es posible, o digamos no es el mejor approach el producir en tu país de origen, en este caso en España, y exportar esos vehículos a la India. Y luego la premisa es que hay que localizar la producción, hay que establecerse en India para tener éxito. Además, ofrece una ventaja, bueno, pues inestimable, como es el coste de mano de obra en ese país y la formación de su personal, que también es muy, muy atractivo. Bueno, pues ellos reconocen que hay que establecer mejoras, hay que establecer algunas acciones para hacer más atractivo. En cuanto a trabajar con la administración pública, con compañías estatales en la India y en especial con Indian Railways no es fácil. Es cierto que hay mucha burocracia y ellos reconocen que eso tienen que mejorarlo sustancialmente, con una serie de acciones para desarrollar, entre otras cosas, nuevos modelos de negocio. Hoy en día presentar una propuesta pues supone mucho tiempo, muchos pasos, esos tienen que mejorarlo sustancialmente para, insisto, hacer atractiva la inversión y evitar a veces cierta frustración cuando los proyectos se alargan más de lo debido y además supone dedicarle más recursos y presupuesto a los mismos, ¿no? Reconocen que para ser más atractivos tienen que hacer la vida más fácil, insisto, a aquellos inversores, a aquellos fabricantes que quieren establecerse en la India. Más datos sobre este programa de Indian Railways Vision 2020. Indian Railways hoy, como he dicho antes, supone el 1,2% del Producto Interior Bruto del país y su objetivo es alcanzar un 3%. Prueba evidente de la voluntad del Gobierno, del Ministerio del Ferrocarril, en invertir seriamente en este sector, en este medio de transporte. Por eso lo hace tan atractivo. También reconocen que el ritmo al que han ido implementando nueva infraestructura viaria, nuevas líneas de ferrocarril, ha sido relativamente lento en los últimos 60 años, dado que solo han abierto 10.000 kilómetros de nuevas líneas. La previsión a futuro, o en este programa, es incrementar hasta 25.000 kilómetros más en el año 2020, lo cual, insisto, es bastante ambicioso. También reconocen que para poder alcanzar estos objetivos tienen que adecuar la capacidad, tienen que establecer la capacidad adecuada para tener, insisto, éxito en la implementación de esta estrategia, de esta visión. Objetivos para ese 2020, insisto y repito, que es al menos alcanzar los 2.500 kilómetros nuevos de nueva infraestructura por año, alcanzando esos 25.000 en el 2020. Esto empezaba en el 2014. Electrificar 14.000 kilómetros más de vía, alcanzando los 33.000 kilómetros. En India hay 64.000 kilómetros de vía hoy. Quieren duplicar, incluso cuadriplicar el tráfico por las líneas. Todos es conocido, lo habéis visto incluso en programas o en películas de televisión, lo popular que es el medio de transporte ferroviario en la India. Subir y aumentar la velocidad. Insisto que el corredor más rápido hoy pues apenas alcanza los 130 kilómetros por hora y la velocidad media pues está en torno a los 55 kilómetros por hora. Eso es necesario invertir y mejorar con material rodante nuevo y también mejoras en la infraestructura. También tienen como objetivo utilizar al menos un 10% en energías renovables para este medio de transporte y completar o acabar corredores de alta velocidad, al menos 4 durante este periodo antes del 2020. Bueno, tuve la ocasión de reunirme con el ministro del ferrocarril hace aproximadamente un año, el señor Suresh Prabhu, además coincidiendo con la sesión parlamentaria en India para la aprobación del presupuesto de India del Ministerio del Ferrocarril para los próximos 5 años. Bueno, me reuní apenas 10 minutos con el señor Suresh Prabhu, insisto, ministro del ferrocarril, y lo que me vino a decir es que estaba gratamente sorprendido porque el Parlamento le había aprobado un presupuesto incluso superior al que él pensaba. Esto es una prueba evidente más de la voluntad que tiene el gobierno indio, el ministro de los ferrocarriles y el ministerio e Indian Railways para seriamente invertir en este medio de transporte en los próximos años porque lo necesitan y la opinión pública se lo está demandando, ¿no? El total de inversión aprobada para los próximos 5 años asciende a 118.000 millones de euros. Bueno, no voy a entrar en detalle, pero aquí veis las partidas en las cuales quieren invertir semejante cantidad. No creo que haya otro mercado en el mundo cuya inversión o voluntad de invertir en este medio de transporte sea equivalente a la de India, ¿no? Bueno, en este plan o presupuesto lo que quieren acometer es comprar, entre otras cosas, adquirir hasta 62.000 coches de mercancías, 1.800 trenes diésel y eléctricos. Ya se han producido ciertas adjudicaciones recientemente. comprar hasta 17.500 coches de viajeros nuevos en este periodo, multitud de coches de trenes eléctricos y lo que llamamos EMU en nuestro sector, Electrical Multiple Unit, hasta 2.873 unidades, desarrollar 6 corredores de alta velocidad y dedicar líneas a tráfico, mercancías y viajeros. Insisto, todas las referencias, todos los parámetros, todos los datos que estamos obteniendo de India, en nuestra corta experiencia, pues no hace sino invitarnos cada vez más a participar, a invertir y a destinar recursos en este mercado porque es muy atractivo. Insisto, por todos lados, toda la información que tenemos pues lo hace muy atractivo, ¿no? Insisto, y con esto acabo, que es fundamental para tener éxito en la India el localizar, el tener voluntad de establecer, bueno, pues una fábrica, un centro de mantenimiento para poder producir allí. Es muy difícil tener éxito, sobre todo si tratas con la administración, con compañías estatales como es Indian Airways, el tratar de producir en tu país y exportar. Quizás haya que producir algo, pero no hay duda de que para tener éxito allí hay que establecerse. Dada la magnitud de las cifras, de la necesidad de invertir en infraestructura y en nuestro caso en material rodante, pues estas cifras justifican y mucho la inversión y centrar nuestros esfuerzos en ese país, no solo para acometer la demanda interna que pueda generarse en India, que es enorme, brutal como habéis visto, sino también, ¿por qué no?, atacar países vecinos, mercados vecinos, con una sede, con un centro de operaciones, con un centro de producción y de fabricación en la propia India. Tenemos en nuestro caso experiencias en otros países como ha sido Kazajstán, Estados Unidos, de producir localmente, que en algunos países, o cada vez más yo diría en ciertos países, es una demanda, es una necesidad para tener éxito. Pero yo quiero insistir que no es lo mismo afrontar una inversión para establecerte en un mercado concreto cuando ese mercado ofrece una demanda y una necesidad brutal, como es el caso en la India. Creo que no hay otro país en nuestro sector, primero, que haya demostrado voluntad de invertir en este medio de transporte. Segundo, y repitiendo un poco y coincidiendo con lo que ha dicho el embajador, dentro de lo que conocemos los BRICS, desde luego la I latina, en mi opinión, es el más atractivo y es el que está demostrando cifras de crecimiento más sólidas para el futuro. Y además, y dicho esto, pues no tiene ningún impacto, tiene un impacto muy positivo, yo diría, la caída del precio del crudo. Al final India no es, que yo sepa, productor de crudo, de petróleo, y por lo tanto todas estas reducciones y bajadas del crudo pues es algo que les beneficia aún más, que no ocurre, digamos, con otros países emergentes como puede ser Rusia y etcétera. De nuevo, thank you very much, Ambassador, for giving us the opportunity to talk about our experience, short experience in India, but of course our willingness to invest and to continue to explore that amazing country and very attractive from the point of view of future investment. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Gracias, señor Oriol. Muchísimas gracias por intervenir, también a la señorita Mandit Johal. Deseamos toda la suerte de éxitos a Talgo en esta nueva aventura que parece que brilla tanto por delante, ¿no? Antes de terminar, queríamos hacer un par de preguntas, ¿no?, como solemos hacer en nuestros desayunos al embajador. Nos hemos alargado un poco, pero creo que merece la pena. To finish, a question from one person from the media. First, how is India doing in the world ranking of legal security? I mean, do you understand? Legal security, to ensure that all the operations are...
Well, if by legal security you mean security of information and data, which is to be protected in India.
Just to protect the corporations once they settle in India.
Okay.
I think it's the meaning of the question.
No, I think the protections are the ones that are available under Indian law, and the ranking of the legal system in any country, insofar as the corporate sector is concerned, are part of the overall rankings that have been developed, which the international rankings agencies look at when they look at the overall environment of doing business in a country or the attractiveness of a country for doing business. And the fact that India is regularly emerging at the top of those rankings means that there is an approval also for the legal regime in India. We have a full-fledged rule of law in India. The courts are supreme in that, and a number of foreign companies have actually obtained relief from India when actually having taken the government of India to court. So even you can take the government of India to court on a corporate matter, on a tax matter, and actually win your case in court and have the government either pay back what it may have taken from you or get the government to reimburse you in case there have been any damages. And that is not, that's more than what can be said for many other countries that I would prefer not to name. But I think we have a legal regime comparable to the best in the world, and companies that do business in India are protected by the force of the law in India.
Okay, that's fine. Second question: if you could give us a takeaway, a simple abstract or sentence, why is India the place to be in the years to come? Why India?
That's a trick question.
Yeah, it is.
I can't answer it in one sentence, but I would say that all the data that I alluded to in my presentation points towards the fact that India is emerging as the most attractive place in the world right now for investments in a variety of sectors. It is the place from where much of future demand is going to come from. And the fact that it offers a diverse environment in which to do business, these are all reasons why India is the place to be in the years to come. Quite apart from the world of doing business, I think contact with India is a life-changing experience, usually for the better, as many companies and individuals have found. And I think the experience of doing business in India is only for the better. I think that's the reason I would say that it is the place to be for the future.
Okay, and last question: which is the strongest piece of advice you'd deliver to a company dreaming of settle down in your country? Should they look for local partners, as mentioned before? Should they search advisors in order to get help?
Well, looking for local partners and seeking advice to navigate local situations and local conditions are both very good pieces of advice that I would give. Sometimes people are not familiar with the local culture, and sometimes there are just how you approach. It's nothing. It's not technical, but just how you approach the environment in which you are going. So looking for a local partner who can help you through that, looking for qualified advice in terms of lawyers, consultants, business advisors is a very good thing to do. But I would say on my list, the top piece of advice that I would give to companies wanting to go to India is to be prepared to change. Contact with India will not leave you unchanged. And if you go into India with the thought that I have a great product and I'm going to conquer the market with this product, then you will find very quickly that the reality on the ground will force you to change very quickly. A number of world-class companies have found that by working within India and by adopting a flexible approach and being ready to adapt their products to local market needs, they can actually create markets out of nowhere. Markets that were not available earlier will suddenly become apparent. And not only will a local market become apparent, but foreign markets will suddenly become much more accessible. The global auto majors have found, for example, that India is one of the best places to design and produce small cars in the small car segment. So Nissan, Hyundai, Ford, they're all discovering this, and they're doing this for the rest of the world now. World-class companies such as GE, and this is an example that I frequently like to quote, developed an ECG machine in India by working with local doctors and local healthcare providers, by which it was able to reduce by a factor of almost 100 or 200 the cost of one of its ECG machines in India. So from nowhere, by being prepared to be flexible and not being fixated with the product that they had, they were able to create a huge market in India for a product that did not exist when they decided to set up in India. So I would say that preserving an element of flexibility and being prepared to change when you go into India is the top thing to keep in mind when you go there.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We are about to finish. We could be discussing the whole morning.
Yes.
That's true. Thanks once again for coming and joining us. It's right to mention that it's been very interesting and has helped us to learn more about your country. Thank you to both companies, Manubens and Talgo, and the speakers, Mr. Oriol and Ms. Johal. And we look forward to see you in the future, and deseamos todo tipo de suerte en el futuro con la semana de Make in India, el mes de febrero en Mumbai, y que todo el programa pues cumpla todos los objetivos que se ha trazado. Muchísimas gracias y a todos por venir. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Les invito a Make in India.
Gracias.